The 20-Sided Tavern is the newest interactive theatrical adventure inspired by Dungeons, Dragons, and so much more. Word nerds, improv lovers, and gamers unite. Become an adventurer on a journey where the story is in your hands and you decide the hero's fate. The Chicago Tribune raves this show celebrates fantasy gaming, innovative, interactive, improv insanity. Assemble your party and join the quest at the Broadway Playhouse now through January 15th. For tickets, visit BroadwayInChicago.com today.
You assumed it did.
Are you prepared to embark on a journey that might involve dungeons, dragons, and is guaranteed to be unlike anything you've ever experienced? Well, join us today as we delve into the 20-Sided Tavern, the newest interactive theatrical adventure experience for you and your family or party. Hello and welcome, heroes, to the Crit Academy. I am your host, Justin.
I'm your co-host, Ian.
I'm your co-host, Brandon.
And I am Sarah Davis Reynolds from the 20-Sided Tavern.
Today, we hope to inspire you with creative content that you can bring with you on your next adventure. First of all, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we delve into the 20-Sided Tavern and all of its fantastic glory, and it is glorious, can you tell us, our audience and us, a little bit about yourself and what you do in the realm of fantasy and role-playing?
Yeah. So, I've been playing tabletop role-playing games for over a decade now, and game designing live experiences for just as long. So sort of taking the things that we learn about games, what are the game mechanics, what are the currencies, how are we doing all of this, and then applying those to live experiences. And of course, I've been, playing video games for, let's see, how old am I? Over 20 years. And so, yeah, what I do in the space is take all the things that I love together and have somehow made a stew that contains all of it. And that's how I pay my rent, which is great.
You're like a wizard almost. You've combined everything that makes nerd awesome into one magical mixture here.
Geeky chili.
I do my best.
So, we've kind of given a brief introduction. Everyone saw the opening video. Could you delve a little bit deeper into what 20-Sided Tavern is? Maybe share the journey of its creation with us and its success?
Yeah, totally. So on its base level, the 20-Sided Tavern is a live action role-playing game that happens on a theatrical stage. So the performers as well as the audience uses digital interactive technology, physical challenges and games, and then of course dice to together tell a very funny, very adventurous story set in a swords and sorcery style world. So every single day is a completely different story. We have certain campaigns that we'll do that have similar story points, but the characters that we see that day, the decisions we made, all of that is different every single show. And so we have been working on the 20-Sided Tavern for about a year and a half now. We actually started it during the pandemic when a lot of us had worked in the theatrical space and everything shut down and we were all stuck on Zoom. And my co-creator, David Andrew Greener Laws, who goes by Daggle, and myself, we both wanted to do a Dungeons and Dragons inspired show. So he had the idea for a very improv-based Dungeons and Dragons show. I had the idea for a very game, mechanic heavy, using the audience to make decisions idea. So we put all of our ideas together and came up with a show that we did actually on Zoom for the first time, where we had 3 players and the DM, and then myself running some of the game mechanic elements. And we did it online on Zoom, and it took off. It went crazy. People really loved it and how interactive it was. And so we have been doing it live in person. We did it for the very first time in September of 2021 at the Philadelphia Fringe Festival, actually. And again, went crazy. It was the first time we did it in front of a live audience. And it's just been going since then. We have done full productions in Pittsburgh, as well as at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And we are now here in Chicago at the Broadway Playhouse with Broadway in Chicago.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you actually sold out in those venues, correct?
Yeah, pretty much all over. Turns out that the Venn diagram of people who like Dungeons and Dragons and people who like theater is a circle. So really, there's not a lot of live experiences that you can go with your friend, with your gaming party, and like watch something happen live that you also get to influence. And so we've really found that this is filling a need that just isn't really being met by some stuff, and people are just turning out in droves. They're coming in costume. They're coming, with their entire gaming groups, and then coming back the next week with more people. So yeah, we're selling out. We're doing really, really well.
That's amazing. So something
Wow.
that I really think is interesting is back in 2016, 2017, we went to a convention, and I know we talked about this previous show where
Yep.
we were trying to come up with a fun idea for a panel because nobody wanted to just hear us talk about the game.
Right.
Especially
So,
since it's an anime convention, we were a Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
yeah. and
Yeah.
we put together this broken D20, and the audience rolled it to decide what they did. And it was packed, and it was so much fun, not only for them, for us. So when I saw your show, is like, oh my god, yes,
I know.
somebody with actual talent has brought this to life on a scale that we could only dream of.
And actually, I think my favorite thing about that show was I posted pictures of us there afterwards. And mind you, you were dressed as a wizard. Brandon here was wearing a full-on dragon helmet with like a movable jaw. And I was like in full body paint as a Goliath barbarian. And I said, hey, we did a thing on the weekend. And suddenly, out of the blue, a friend I've not seen in years suddenly commented on Facebook, that was you? You guys were hilarious.
Wow,
I think the big takeaway from that is that, was it 20-Sided Tavern?
Mhm.
They have like a multitude of different multiple choice things. Whereas
Yeah.
ours were, I was a Dragonborn and you were a barbarian, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And
You were a
he would
rogue.
have an idea, and I would have an idea, and then the audience would vote on
Mm-hmm.
what we're gonna go through.
But what you guys have done has taken that to a whole new level.
Yes.
Now, I really enjoyed watching the Chicago show, and what really interested me is all the different tools you use to engage the audience. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe give some samples of how it really impacts the story.
Yeah, definitely. So we're really big on making sure that everything is balanced. So we use this technology called Gamiotics, which is a browser-based software. So you come in with your cell phone, and everyone has got a smartphone in their pockets nowadays. You scan a QR code, and it just takes them to a website. It's not an app. And that is how we are able to really give like immediate in-seat interaction for this. So the 5 performers that are on stage, we have our game master, we have myself, I play the tavern keeper, so I run a lot of those technical elements. And then we have a fighter, a mage, and a rogue. And the audience is split up into what we call cohorts. So a third of the audience plays with the fighter, a third plays with the mage, and a third plays with the rogue. So we can send specific decisions to only the fighters or only the mages. So like when we're in combat, we will ask the mage, okay, what are 2 things that you could do? And they'll present 2 options. So they could say, I'm going to do fire or I'm going to do ice. And then the mages alone get to decide, are we going to do fire or are we going to do ice? And then functionally, we will have the spell that goes with that. We roll the die to see if it is successful or not, and we go from there. So that's sort of one of those immediate in your seat moments where you can make the decisions. And then we also use that to do some challenges. So we have things called multi-clicks and over-unders, and it's sort of doing button mashing or trying to fill a bar in between 2 lines if you're trying to be a little bit of finesse in there. And then we also have very physical, tangible things. So we will get audience members on stage to play fantasy beer pong with us, or we'll have them come up to play an NPC, and we'll send them the lines on their phone, and they're acting with the game master up on stage. We play like Jenga, which I think you saw in the
Jenga set.
yeah, the
I was
giant
like,
Jenga
yes!
set.
Oh my
And then
God.
we have Act 2 versions of those. So in Act 1, we'll play Jenga, and in Act 2, we spread out, these giant foam blocks in the audience, and the players have to go around and balance them on their heads and collect them from the audience members. So it's really everyone working together to like collectively and collaboratively complete these things while also just having a lot of fun. And then of course there's the dice who, decide what kind of a day we're really going to have.
Gotta have giant dice.
Yeah,
So
yes.
you mentioned the giant die, and Brandon had a burning question. You touched on a little bit pre-show.
There it is.
I think it's very relevant because it's not easy to put a almost 3-foot diameter die together. I don't know how
Yeah.
big it is, but it looks
No,
massive.
not.
It's 24 inches face to face. Yeah.
Oh my god! That's
So
what we
I
were
guess
talking before
everything for
show.
me just looks bigger, so I'm used to.
Our Shudokon one was I made what the fuck?
Like you used PVC pipe, didn't you?
We made I made a D20, the PVC triangles, did 20 of them. I zip tied them all. I zip tied them all together, and I used duct tape to make it a solid object, and I put the numbers on.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it came up with a 17, 11, and 1 a lot, so it wasn't balanced, of
Mhm.
course. And now, yeah, I'm gonna let you do the same answer you gave me. And hey, what's that big ass D20 made of? How'd you guys do that?
Yeah. So our cheeky answer is magic. But yeah, so our amazing scenic and props and costume designer Katie McGeorge is the proprietor of this, what we call the Decider. And so we have 7 different ones that live in the world right now. Some of them here in the US, some of them are over in Scotland, actually. And we've gone through a couple different stages of how we make this. I can't tell you exactly what it's made out of because that's a trade secret. But I can tell you that it is 4.5 pounds. So it is not made out of wood. It is not made out of PVC pipe. And it's not made out of resin. But it's very, very balanced. Right now, we have a couple different versions. We've got the one that you saw in the picture there that has that what looks like the metal frame. That's actually rubber that kind of gives it more durability and holds it together. But yeah, a couple different versions of it around the world.
Is this something I could buy?
Maybe one day. We do have a couple that we've done on commission before. And you know,
How much
that's the hope as we continue on our quest for world domination.
Well,
There will
if
be
you're
a
looking
Decider
for
Decider in every home.
advertising, we could totally dangle one over our heads. Just forget this whole thing. We'll just
Like that.
Just
like
a
that.
giant
Yellow and
D20
purple.
so
in your
you
colors
keep,
and
you
everything.
keep us
Yeah,
in the loop.
This is my biggest.
yeah,
D20,
definitely.
And it's a stress ball.
Oh, that would be great.
Hey, whoa! I don't come to your house and throw shit.
It's made of foam.
Doesn't make it okay.
It's a 14. I win.
It's a 14. I can beat
Not
it.
bad.
Anyways, so first of all, I think the inclusion of the massive D20 is just so iconic and is something that anybody in role playing
Good
industry
catch.
Wow, I'm
Um,
impressed.
tried to throw it at me. Hey, by the way, caught it. Just in case you guys didn't notice.
Yeah.
Uh,
you
Did you see that? I
That-
just
that
had
20 on your
cat-like
deck save.
Yeah, I was gonna say
reflexes.
good deck save there.
Yeah, nat 20.
Yeah,
Dick.
Now I'm not left-handed, so I couldn't throw.
or
it
at
back
least a 14. You know.
her. At least a 14. So
I love it.
I totally just. It's the D20. I forgot what tangent I was going on. The D20 is so iconic that when anybody looks at it, even when I first saw it, I was just like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!
Mhm.
I need to know more." And just like Brand, I immediately wanted to buy one. Like, what am I gonna do with this thing? I'm gonna show up as the dungeon master for the 24-inch D20.
You're the best
Oh,
dungeon master.
yeah, dude, it'd be the best inspiration die.
Yeah.
So yes, so as soon as these are available for purchase, please.
I will
Yeah.
DM you. I'll let you
For
know.
my games, I got a hand-sized D20 that I use for rolling in the open. Because they're all spread out, so I just take it and I throw it on the floor so they don't see it.
Is that made out of PVC pipe too?
It's made of resin.
Anyway, we're rambling too much.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So I only have seen one of your shows,
Mhm.
but I know the nature of the audience engagement
Yep.
and the chance of the die. Is every story unique that you tell, or is it like a similar story that has just many possible outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, a little more of the latter. It is definitely true when we say that no show is ever the same. So I mentioned that we have the fighter, the mage, and the rogue, and each of those actors has 3 different characters that they are familiar with, and they don't know who they're playing until the show starts and the audience tells them. The audience votes on who they get to play that night. So completely different, like combinations of characters and classes and all of that. So we have a basic, campaign structure. So we have 4 total campaigns that we've ever run. Right now in Chicago, we're running the Temple of the Crystal Cauldron is the name of the campaign. And so we have certain milestones that we will always hit. We know that we're always going to start in the tavern, the Curious Hedgehog. We know that we're going to, get the call to adventure and we're going to go to the temple to do the ritual. But what happens like in between points A and B is what is completely different every time based on who the characters are, what names the audience gives us for NPCs. That's a whole other story.
That sounds
you
awesome.
It's truly crazy. Yeah, and then obviously the way the dice roll, the way the combat, shakes out, all of that changes. So that each night is drastically different. Even if there are some plot points that are, the same, everything that happens in between is so very different that it's a completely different experience.
That makes sense.
Okay, so if you're running a campaign,
Hmm.
like a continuous storyline,
Hmm.
is that a method to get people who come one week to come the next week to keep coming over and over again?
That
'Cause that
kind of.
is
I mean,
fucking genius.
it's basically it's kind of like a one-shot campaign, right? We will tell the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story in the 2-hour show. So we will wrap up the whole story. But
Okay.
the story, I'll give you a little bit of spoilers, inside knowledge here, is that every 99 years, this temple needs to do a ritual to keep peace and order happening. And so the way that we can sort of continuously tell this is every 99 years, we have to do it again and we have to tell the story again. And so each performance is, sort of going on top of that and folding and scaffolding. And actually the way that how well one audience does affects the next show. So if you did a really good job on the ritual, that means it's a little bit easier for the next show. If you mess it up, the next show is going to have a harder time. So it just keeps scaffolding on top of each other.
This encounter this week will be deadly. God damn it! Last week.
Ooh, oh yeah.
I could just see rage nerds on the internet. All right, you bastards that were at the last one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, they'll, we'll say, okay, the DC on this is going to be an 18, and the audience all groans, and we're like, don't look at us, look at last night's audience. It's not my fault.
Now, I'm mildly curious. Just going to a slight tangent here. At the beginning of each session, if you will, or show, you bring out the actors. You say, these are multiple characters I could play.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your favorite that you have portrayed?
Ooh, so I am always the tavern keeper, so I don't ever get to do any of the fun characters. But I do get to make them. So that's fun, and then I get to give them to the actors and say, now you get to go have fun with them. So I will say one of my favorite that I've made is a Loxodon artificer. Who, if you've ever seen Disney's Atlantis, he's very, very similar to the mole who digs all the time. He just loves explosions, and that's his entire thing. He just loves blowing things up.
Isn't Loxodon like an elephant?
Yeah.
Like an elephant, yeah.
Like digging? Like with a
yeah. He's an explosive elephant whose name is Elmir. And he's my favorite, and I can't explain why.
And Luke made a bridge. That took, 10 seconds? Whoa.
That sounds very fun. And I'll admit, even to this day, even though we did a show one time, I'm still partial to Thorg. And his big gimmick was, like a better phrase, English is not his first language. It's like if somebody tried to learn language from a dictionary.
Yeah, so knows the vocabulary.
How it manifested was he considers himself a pacifist because he pacifies his enemies.
I'll say this. I said this earlier. I said, we were talking about trying and succeeding versus things. And I said, try is a word, succeed is another word. And I feel like that's the same thing. It's like pacify is a word. I'm just using it in a different context here.
Yeah.
Better be pacified.
You miss 100 of the shots you don't take. Mm-hmm. And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that.
And that's still the audience's reaction when they put two and two together on that one.
I love it. So there is a lot that kind of goes into this production because it's on a big scale.
Yeah.
Pickle juice.
Huh?
There is pickle juice in the show.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a poison.
Yeah.
Poison pickle juice. I like that idea. That's
it was. And actually, one thing I kind of appreciate too was when we did our panel, we tried to take into account the audience participation to add time.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember we timed out to it took us during a test playthrough an hour and a half. To our panel, so we should be good. We were wrong. We should have dialed it back to about an hour.
Yeah.
Timing.
We actually do have a really good question that came in from one of our Facebook followers.
Sure.
Yes.
Will you be visiting other cities after your Chicago run? And do you have a list of those? Is that planned out in advance?
No, that's a great question. The answer is we've like I said, we were in Pittsburgh and we've done New York, we've done Edinburgh, and we're in Chicago now. The plan is to continue. I do not have specific cities yet, but if you follow us on socials like that, we will immediately, the minute we have dates and places like that, things will be on there. So follow all of the 20-Sided Tavern socials and you'll be the first to know. We're not stopping here, I guess is the answer that I can give you.
That's a great answer, and honestly, we are super excited for you and your success, because this is just one more tool to snag more people into our wonderful hobbies.
Yeah, one of
Because
my
there
favorite
are
things with the audiences is we will see a lot of kids bringing their like grandparents, and because they'll usually play the game at the grandparents' house, and the grandparents don't know what's going on, but then they bring them to this show, and they go, "Oh, now I know what you're doing, and I want to get involved." So it's really lovely to see how this is expanding the community.
yeah.
And we just had
And
one of our users just say, sadly, they missed your show when it was in Pittsburgh.
Oh
so-
no! Well,
damn
hopefully
it,
we'll come back.
Charles.
Yeah,
Sad
we're in
face.
Chicago. It's funny 'cause the wife and I are planning on taking a trip to Chicago at some point, but because the kids and they still have the masking rules in Chicago,
Yeah, because they
and
don't want
the
to
kids
kill
are
people.
impossible to keep a mask on.
That's true.
We want to take a train down to there, and she wants to take it to the art museum, and all other stuff.
Well, if you go there before January 15th, you can
No, I'm
jump
like,
be
in
there.
on the 20-Sided Tavern.
we got another reason to go to Chicago, please.
Yeah,
There you go. Yep, we're here till
I
the
get vacation
15th.
time.
So obviously, I got back on my tangent before I was interrupted as my brain went to mush.
What's new?
I have a couple questions before we move into one of the last ones. And in role playing games in general, part of it is the leveling up and evolving of the characters. Does anything like that happen in the shows?
That's a great question. So they are all built at roughly level 6, and mostly stay that way. But they do collect items throughout the shows.
Mhm.
Especially, we have one campaign that's not the one we're doing in Chicago, but the one we did in Edinburgh, where they would collect magical items throughout the campaign, which would give them buffs and give them, additional abilities and things like that. So for the most part, they don't do full level ups, but they do get
Gotcha.
things that make them more
They
powerful or
level.
potentially weaker, depending on what the item is.
Potentially
I like
weaker.
that.
Yeah, so the one we did in Edinburgh, that campaign was Cryptids at Coldfire Caverns. And if you did good, you got an item that helped you. If you did badly, you got an item that made you weaker.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Curses are a bitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
-1 to AC or anything like that. Yeah.
So
-3 to your intelligence. I forgot how to math.
I don't know how to math. We couldn't solve the
I
riddle
can
in time.
only count to 4.
I can only count to 4. I
Ooh.
can only count to 4. I can only count. Anyway, so there's just I got more questions than we have time for.
Yeah.
So there is a question that
Ooh, that's a good question.
just showed up.
Fucking Charles.
Do you want to touch on that and from Andrew?
Yep, Andrew on YouTube asked this question. Unexpected things happen in campaigns all the time because of player choices. What would you say your favorite unexpected / unscripted moment has been during the show?
What a good question. So one of the things that I always say about this show is that we maintain the capacity for everyone to surprise everyone. And that includes the players. That also includes the audience, because the audience is a fourth player. And most of the insane, unexpected, unscripted things come from the audience. So one of the things we do, we always ask for a lot of NPC names from the audience. And my favorite ones are when the audience gets on a theme. So they'll name like one David, and then they'll name the next one David, and then they just like keep going on it. And obviously we're acting like we're completely frustrated about it, and we kind of are sometimes. But they just love it. They revel in making us flustered and frustrated and getting names mixed up. And so I think those are always my favorite, when they just really decide that they are driving the ship that day, and we're like, cool, all right, that's totally fine. There was one time they named a very important, pivotal character, Mother Coconuts, which I don't know if that's a reference to something or what, but we had to, in very serious moment of exposition, call this character Mother Coconuts. And we're like, all right, well, we've diffused all the tension now. But yeah, so just really, really fun bits like that. And then here in Chicago, especially, there is a liquor here in Chicago called Malort, and it tastes like if jet fuel and I don't know sewage had a baby. It's very bad,
Ew.
but Chicago loves it. And so we use it in our show. Whenever you roll a natural 20 or a natural 1, you either get to take a shot of celebration or a shot of shame. And Chicago, they're horny for Malort. They are screaming Malort at us. If we do not take Malort for those shots of shame, like I think they would burn the theater down. So it's pretty insane.
Dulcinea.
Our audience members agree it's the
Oh
worst.
God, no!
It's so bad.
It's the worst.
I don't understand.
And I'm thinking about the one time where we encountered a dragon, and the DM was like, "What?" Like the players are like, "Okay, what's the dragon's name?" And I said half jokingly, "I bet you're thinking the dragon's name is," but we can't pronounce it, so his name's Steve.
Exactly. The amount of times that the bartender, which is the first NPC we name, is named Steve, like it is actually, we have stats of how many times it happens all the time. It's crazy.
That's great.
What is Malort?
So
Is that a vodka or something?
Mother coconut
It's-
meat.
I
powder
don't
rum.
even know. It's not
It's
vodka.
jet
It is
fuel
some
mixed with
specific
sewage.
Chicago liquor. I don't know.
So Ezo.
I heard that.
So before we we're coming to a close on our show today, and that's sad because I'm loving this.
I know.
Uh, what is your favorite part of the 20-sided tavern show?
Ooh.
Drinking.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I had my 100th show last night, and I went shot for shot with everyone, which means I took 7 shots throughout the whole show. That was a fun show. No, my favorite part is that I don't know if I've ever been in a room where there are hundreds. I mean, this theater seats 500 people, and there are hundreds of us who are all screaming for the same things. So when we're rolling the decider, and we have this thing called a re-roll, which is once per show per cohort. If you roll poorly, the audience and the player can do a challenge to re-roll, and they get to roll the big decider. And the tension in the room while we are seeing if we will roll higher, like high enough to do the thing we need to do, and the screams that happen when that decider lands on a 20. I think I've gone deaf before, truly. I've never been in a room that is just simply so electric and live. And it's about something, we're all playing a game that we all love, and that, we are often called nerds for loving. But it is 500 people having this common love for something and getting so involved and so into it. And it's just like, it feels home. It's this nice community where you can be as crazy or wild as chaotic as you want to be, and it's going to be accepted.
that's awesome, and I am so happy to see this growing and succeeding and reaching, as I said earlier, growing the potential audience for role playing games, and work like what you're doing is just a huge asset. So thank you, and congratulations on the success.
Thank
Um,
you.
is there anything you wanted to talk about or discuss that we may have missed?
Ooh, I think we hit a lot of the good stuff.
Except the what is it, that wine, more
Malort.
Morlort?
Malort,
Dandelion-
it's a dandelion whiskey. I learned
dandelion
something
whiskey.
today.
Ugh,
It's
that sounds
we
disgusting.
genuinely, not to keep going on the Malort tangent, but we genuinely before the first show all took a shot together so that we were prepared because it's that bad. um,
That's
yeah.
very cool. Ooh. Sorry, I'll continue. I didn't. You think we touched pretty much on everything then?
Malort
Yeah, I
combined
think
with
so.
beer.
I mean, just again, if you're in the Chicago area, we would love to see you. We're here until January 15th. If you're not in the Chicago area, we have a really vibrant community, especially on our Discord. We do a lot of things on our Discord. We're actually going to have a game night this Tuesday for National Games Day. So, if you want to come
Nice.
play some Jackbox games with us or anything like that, just come check us out. We have a podcast, so we, even when we don't have an active show running, we have a lot of stuff happening, and so just we'd love to come hang out.
Nice.
Very cool. There's one last question that as somebody that I feel special, I just feel like I gotta ask.
Of course,
Have you-
it
Sure.
caught your eye.
Silverwolf says, "Have you thought about having special guests on your show?" Wink, wink.
Pick us.
That is an excellent question, and the answer is yes. The way that we have structured the show of having a fighter, a mage, and a rogue, each of them with 3 characters, is specifically so that like we can very easily bring in guests, and they don't need a lot of rehearsal time because it's all improvised, right? It's as long as you know your character, you can get thrown in there and call it a day. So we did specifically structure it to have some special guests, and we're hoping to have some of those soon.
My dice are trembling with excitement. As soon as I can figure out how to sign up for that, I want to.
Yeah.
'Cause that would be so cool. I mean,
What the shit?
I could be the villain. I got the shape for it. All right. So, as we close out, you want to give yourself one final plug for the 20-Sided Tavern. Where can people follow, find, and support the show?
Yeah, so we are on all social channels at 20-Sided Tavern. And if you are in Chicago, we are here until January 15th. You can get tickets at broadwayinchicago.com. We do have let me see if I can remember this. We have a discount code. I think it's holiday, and that is discount tickets throughout the end of the year. So we're here until then. Come say hi. Like I said, we're really active on Discord. Like I and my co-creator Daggle are very active on everything. We like to chat. If you ever have questions, like feel free to ask us. We're very transparent about this process because we just really love sharing it and talking about it. And yeah.
Before we cut out, where are you going next?
Where are we going next? I cannot say yet, but hopefully soon.
Okay. Good luck.
I'm really
Thanks so
excited
much.
for it. All right.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Damn, I want to go.
Sarah, thank you once again so much for joining us today. This has been a blast. I can't wait to watch another show. For everyone else, you heard her. Check this out. I highly recommend it. I've seen one show and it is absolutely amazing. Every role player needs to take their family to see this. If you have family members that don't understand D&D or Numenera or Pathfinder or whatever role playing game you play, this show can help them understand in a
we'll teach you.
new way, which I just think is glorious. So. That'll do it for our show today. Thank you once again for joining us today, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Guest.
Thanks so much.
For all of you watching, if you enjoyed the show and you would like to support Crit Academy, go and buy tickets to 20-Sided Tavern.
Yeah.
Go to our website, visit us at critacademy.com, check out some of our amazing best-selling third-party content, follow us on social media, maybe leave a review, all that jazz. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that bell and subscribe button and get a big annoying alert when we go live and you'll know it's us, so we can bug you even when you're not watching us. That'll do it for our show today. I am your host, Justin.
Oh, is it me?
Hi.
Hi.
You're our guest.
Oh, yes. I'm Sarah.
And I'm your co-host, Ian.
I'm your co-host, Brandon. Thanks for listening.
Keep your blades sharp and spell prepared, heroes.
Whew, that echoes.